Good news, everybody! It's time for another episode of the Next Level Podcast. I'm your host, Carm, also known as JC, that person. Joined always by the lovely and talented co-host, Claire XI. Claire, how we doing?
We're doing well. Also go by Ava sometimes, depending on which character you see me on. And you're just JCN. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that name.
Yeah, I had to bring up that joke just because, that's just the other character that I have. And I love every time we get into a new Discord server because my tag is always Karmas026. And then they're just like, what's this random paladin? It's like, it looks like Jennifer, but it's not. And they always struggle through it and they always try to pronounce it, and it's the most ridiculous name ever. And like the best part of it, there is no backstory. I have no idea why the person that originally owned JCN named her this to this day. I just don't know. But they always struggle through it, and I just like stop them. I'm like, it's just JCN. Just go with it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever tried to pronounce JCN's name. I think I just always called you JCN because I didn't know the original owner of JCN. It was just always you.
Yeah, she was a cool person, and everybody just called her JCN or her actual name, which I won't name drop or anything like that. But, nobody really. I never ever heard the answer in all the years that I played with her. I don't know. I think she just picked up something random and it came up with that, and that's what she went with. And I was like, okay. So that's our random story of the day about awareness of my other character. So how was your week or week and a half or however long it's been?
It's been crazy. But in regards to Final Fantasy XI, it's not been very eventful. I actually haven't been logging in too much, but the times I did log in, it was Mur and I doing Nizuile and Einherjar in order to get Mur caught up in tokens and Iker to make Gunker. And then also just so that way I don't have to do it later when I'm working on Top Samadhi. Because yay, Scholar.
Yay,
What about you, Carm?
I really haven't been doing as much on the game the last couple weeks. It's been really busy in my personal life. As you know, I've now become the proud owner, not a proud owner. I'll get punched for saying that. The wonderful recipient of an awesome girlfriend. So that's been splitting up a little bit of my time, which has been great. It's given me a great break from the game, and when I do come back to the game, I'm fresh and I'm ready to get back on and do some fun stuff. But at the same time, it's given a great balance, and I think that's really important in an FFXI player's life, because if you just sit here and bang out everything with this game, it is a game that gives you back what you put in. So if you bang out 72 hours in like 4 days or something, and then just sit there and like, oh, you're just exhausted from playing it, you'll probably get a lot done, but you're just not going to feel that great about it. Like it's going to be exhausting after a while. And I had a really eventful February, honestly. Like I completed nearly 5 Rimas between my two characters.
Yeah, you were a little nuts, and I'm sorry I didn't help you on your Nizuiles, but we did do your full Aeonic clears with just the 6 of us, except for on one mob we needed 1 Rune Fencer, which was fine. We did it on first try. It was great.
Yeah, Nigel wasn't... I guess I'm looking back at the whole course of it, and Nigel wasn't even that bad, because I had to do Atonement Trials. If anybody hasn't made Burt King and experienced the lovely joy of doing Atonement Trials and leveling up Burt King, it's an experience. It really makes you just appreciate every other weapon skill in the game actually doing some sort of respectable damage.
Maybe they'll fix Atonement in the 20th anniversary, so that way, maybe it'll actually have a damage modifier that's also enhanced by enmity instead of it just being a pure enmity weapon skill.
Yeah, I don't think that... I kind of like the way it is, though. Now that it's actually finished and everything, I kind of like the niche use of Atonement is you don't go to it if you're able to keep damage via hate, but there are times, like, I use it a lot during the Henwin fight, because my Savage Blades don't do crap on Henwin. But I spam Atonement because it's still pushing out a lot of enmity and a lot of backlog, and it can skill chain pretty well. So it's useful for niche things, and that's kind of what everything in this game is about, is finding its niche use.
True. That's very true. I think the hardest trial I've had so far was just Nirvana. But even then, I could build up an actual build for Garland of Bliss, because it was a magic-based weapon skill, and of course Summoner gets a lot of mage gear, so you can actually enhance that weapon skill, and the trials weren't so bad once I did that, but I heard you doing your Atonement trials and dying a little inside.
It was a struggle. I mean, it wasn't like... I even cringed a little watching Mur do Gutler trials recently, and just being able to go to the next mob, hit it once, and weapon skill at 90%, because with the Atonement you have to get... I think my sweet spot was usually around 14%. And at that threshold, you're almost in worry of getting a double attack proc if you're haste capped, and then all of a sudden you just kill it because you're attacking too fast, and you're like, no!
Speaking of Mur's Gutler trials, for those that didn't know, we were streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv.com or twitch.tv/nextlevelpc on the off weeks that we're not putting up an episode. So you can come join us next Sunday for our next stream session. It's going to be fantastic.
I like the shameless plug. Well done.
I did. And I fucked it up too. I was so mad at myself.
Jeez, and now you're dropping the F-bomb. Oh my gosh,
no.
we've gone the wrong direction. Turn it off. Restart the recording. Restart.
Claire's swearing there's a problem.
But no, it's been a good time kind of completing, because I completed a lot of big Rimas. I mean, Aeneas, what other Ionic did I...
The shield?
get? Oh, Servatsa, yeah. It's pretty important.
The one you were really going for.
Shows how much that I've really been excited about it. But Servatsa, the Aeneas, Karnwanhan, Yagra, Spurt Gang, and then just recently I finished my Epio, so it's been a very eventful 2 months for my Rimas, which has been a lot of fun. A lot of gil dump. I'm pretty much in the drain with all of my gil, so trying to slow down a little bit and build that back up. But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm reaping all these rewards that I'm building up for so long. I mean, if anybody hasn't done the Coalition grind, it's definitely real. And by the end of it, you're like, holy crap, this last Coalition is taking so long. Yeah. But once you finally finish it, you're just like, holy crap, this was all worth it, because you get that Epio, you get that... It's a sizable difference on Rune Fencer, so it's been fun.
Well, just think, you're partway done with the Agnes derivative. Is it derivative? No, directive. Directive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's directive. I fucked it up again. See, me. This is me today. It's okay.
We're going to get canceled on our first week.
I know, because I'm just swearing up a storm right now. Because you did all of the coalitions, you didn't just get Legend, you did all of them, so you wouldn't have to repeat them again for your +1 Adulin rings.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really great to have all that completion and have all that different levels of accomplishment in the game, so it's been fun.
And you're not like me, who was a nutcase and didn't do it when I did it with my alt. So now I have to go back and do them all over again.
No. Not just didn't do it with your alt. Have done more coalitions on your 6 other characters than you have on your main.
Okay, it's not 6. It's only 4. I only have 4 of the crafting mules. It's fine.
Which have all done more coalitions than Claire.
I keep forgetting to do them on hers because I do all of my mules while I'm at work, and then I get off of work, and it's like, okay, let's go do content, so that I don't do it on Claire because I'm doing actual content. Don't judge me, Carm. They can all judge me, but you can't judge me.
I think my judgment's been set down. We've known each other long enough. I don't think it's changing anytime soon.
I can see you still rolling your eyes at me, though.
If I had my camera on, you would probably be accurately correct.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, on the grind, I was kind of excited when I finished with the delve, getting the last of the plasm I needed for Epio, because I actually saw a worthwhile yell on Asura. And for any people that aren't from Asura or even the people that are on Asura, worthwhile yells are like a dime a dozen. Usually it's people yelling about your mom or summon or burn all the things or sell job points this, or like, there's really very few worthwhile yells of people actually trying to get a group together. And shout out to Juju Beans of Asura, who took the time to make a delve group and get some people together, even though he didn't really know all the ins and outs of delve, hadn't done it that much, but wanted to get people together to actually experience the content. And it was actually really fun to just meet new people and get involved and just actually experience the game on a different level from people who hadn't experienced all of the content that I have.
Yeah, that's what I really like about helping new or returning players is just the joy they get out of trying each new event and getting that fresh new experience while you have somebody like me who's been playing with all the new content coming out, or even like Mur, who's been playing even longer. And you get to the point where it's just something you do and you're just so robotic at it because you know what to do and you know how the process works, and just having new people coming in and even just explaining the process to them so that way they can comprehend what's going on is still so much fun to even get to do as a veteran player.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us into our topic of the day, which is Omen. I mean, I remember coming back to the game, and pretty much at that point when I came back, Omen was old news, and a lot of people had their stuff from Omen. I mean, besides the bodies that are just impossible to ever drop from Omen, and you have better luck getting them out of Trove. But it was still like, when you look back and really look at Omen and all the different mechanics and thoughts that were put into this event, I think it was just a very well done event.
Well, and Omen itself has actually gone through a lot of changes, even after its initial release in December 2016. Because when it was first released, it was a completely new concept where it had almost that tie to Nizal Isle, where there were different floors, and you could only bring 6 people into it. And there were only 5 bosses. So there was the Jin, Kin, Fu, Ki, and Koyu, which is the standard shouts that you see with people trying to get pieces from those. But at the same time, it kind of relates to Odyssey, which is the most current content, where you could only get a single mystical canteen every 20 hours. So that means the goblin could only hold 1 tag. So you would have to do Omen every day like you do with Odyssey. See, I even messed that up because that's how you do Odyssey right now, is you have to make sure you at least do it once a day. So that way you use your tag. But that's how it was back then. And it was difficult when it first came out because you didn't have AF +2/+3. You didn't have Relic +2/+3. You didn't have Odyssey gear. So you didn't have all these overpowerful gear. You had to do Oseam augments, which nobody likes Oseam.
Oh.
He's terrible. And you had to have a good enough group that was able to do all of Raizenshima mobs. So your gear wasn't as overly powered when Omen came out, and trying to think of strategies for these unique bosses that all work differently, but you still wanted to make sure you had TH to actually get these good drops was challenging, and it was so much fun. Like, people that popped in my streams before would always hear me go, I miss old school Omen, just because of the difficulty it used to have. But around February 2017, they opened up I call it OU path, but it's that additional path that doesn't allow you to go to the main bosses. And it's only 3 floors. You have the first 2, and then you go over to the bigger floor that allow you to get more cards, because generally you only get 3 to 4 cards in a boss run, while if you do the bigger area, you get 5 to 6. So that was a nice adjustment in and itself, to allow people, if they don't need anything from bosses, they could at least go get these cards. And one thing that was so obnoxious when doing boss runs are sometimes those mid bosses, because sometimes they were harder than the final Catteray bosses. I mean, you had Glassy Thinker that would use Pain Sync, and for those that haven't done Omen and haven't had to deal with Glassy Thinker, what Pain Sync does is he will charge it up for a long period of time. Like, most of the time you see them charging and use their weapon skill right away. He'll go, Glassy Thinker uses Pain Sync, and he'll just sit there for a little bit. You almost think your game is kind of glitching out, but it's not, I promise. He will take however much damage you deal to him during that charge up time and release it back to a 20 radius around him 3 times the amount.
Yeah, the fun thing about Glassy Thinker is you really don't die to Glassy Thinker. You die to the people in your group. So a lot of people will send like 2 people that can actually, or don't have latency issues or something. And it was a really big thing to just make sure you didn't destroy your entire alliance or your entire 6-man party with just hitting him during Pain Sync.
Yeah. Well, and at the time, he could use it back to back, and I had one run where we timed out because that's all he would use was Pain Sync. It was literally Pain Sync, Pain Sync. We would do like 1% damage, and then he would Pain Sync, and then we'd have to turn around again. And then we'd do maybe 1% more, and then we'd have to turn around again. It was so obnoxious back then, because you would just, if you saw Glassy Thinker, you were just like, well, this run is screwed. The other thing that people don't realize with him as well too is if you're a scholar and you do any helix on Glassy Thinker, if that ticks down while Pain Sync is going, it'll also count that damage to revert back to everybody. So it's one of those things where scholars that are doing the nuking path are like, oh, I gotta put a helix on this mob. And you're just like, no, don't. You will wipe the party.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about content, like you said, that was released in 2016, but this is all still content that even with the updates to gear, with the Odyssey gear, with all the updates and the time we've had to do this, all of the mechanics that have been put into Omen can still kill you. You can't ignore these mechanics.
Yeah, I think the other NM that would kill a lot of people back then and even today is Glassy Craver. He's the daddy longlegs looking one. He has 2 moves that he usually does back to back. He's got Carousel, he'll do View Sync first, so he'll pull everybody in within a 25 yalm radius. It usually doesn't do too much damage, but it can do a lot if you don't have Wilt or Barrier in your party from a Geomancer. But then afterwards, he will do Carousel, so he'll spin back around, which knocks everybody away from each other. And it's usually a pretty far distance that you go. I know in our group, there's a little nook by a rock in the bamboo trees that we like to sit in, so that way when we get knocked back, we're still within the distance to be able to hit him. But that was such a annoying thing to deal with back then, because you would just be constantly getting knocked back forward, knocked back forward, knocked back forward, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't get any spells off. And then he'll pair that with Mighty Strikes. So then it'll deal even more damage, and then you'll start seeing the DD start dying, and then the mages start dying, and everybody's dying. And you're just like, oh no.
Well, even now, we're still putting DT sets on for that fight. If you don't put on DT sets, you still take significant damage, and that's, again, with the updated gear and the way things are moving forward. Like, it impresses me every time I do Omen that there's still this challenge to it.
Yeah, I think the most underrated mid boss would be Gorger, because people see him and they're just like, oh, he just steals her buffs. But they don't realize that his quadratic continuum move gets more damaging the more buffs he absorbs, because, hello, he's getting your chaos rolls, he's getting your berserk, he's getting all of those buff increases, which is also going to increase his weapon skills, and they just get one shot, and they're just like, how did this mob take me out? And it's like, well, you're not dispelling him, so he's just stealing everything and just wrecking face. So
And I mean, even the mid bosses have some notable gear that's still, I mean, to this day, quite used. I mean, you've got Regal Earring, you've got Kishar Ring that I don't talk about because it constantly avoids me. You've got the Range Shield, the Nuska Shield. You've got
you got
Era
Knob Curry
Pendant.
from him.
Yep, Knob Curry, Era Pendant. There's all these different drops, and they're actually still some widely used among players from this old content.
Yeah. But during that February 2017 update, with them changing it to where Thinker can't do Pain Sync back to back, it alleviates a lot of that turning around mechanic where you go, okay, we see Pain Sync, we turn around. Everybody knows that after it goes off, you can turn back and get at least a weapon skill off and see him use one other move. And then it's like, okay, focus again, because Pain Sync can come up again now that he's used a secondary move. But it's just a relief that you can do that timing and you're not feeling like I have to be my back turned to this entire fight the whole time.
Yeah, it gives you that small, like you said, breath of fresh air where you feel like you can not just live on eggshells for a while.
Yeah. And then there was the big update to Omen in March 2017. So you had these back-to-back updates with Omen. But in March 2017, the Goblin will now hold 2 charges of mystical canteens. So now you at least can have 3 and not have to worry about doing it back-to-back every single day. But also, you are allowed to go in with a full alliance, and the mobs don't scale. So they would literally stop once you have 6 people, and then that difficulty doesn't change. So you could bring people, even if they were just leeching for cards, or they were going to get the gear that you just don't need anymore, and it would just fall to the floor otherwise. So you could start bringing in those people, or bring in the unique jobs that people couldn't come as to get cards, because you needed specific setups for each of these bosses. So it was a relief in that case, because that was one of the frustrations that people had with Omen originally. It's like, we have to have a white mage, we have to have a bard, we have to have a geo. Well, that's 3 slots taken, and these people can never change off of them. And the 10-to-1 ratio with cards is the biggest slap in the face that I still hate to this day. I'm sorry, Square Enix. 10-to-1 ratio when you only get 3 to 6 cards a run is awful.
So I'm pretty sure most people that would listen to this know what the cards are, but the Paragon job cards are one of the big rewards you get from doing Omen, and that's how you upgrade your artifact armor to +2 and +3. And They're a big deal. The what the artifact armor does for a lot of jobs. I mean, yes, now they're pretty much macro pieces and they're not full timed or any means, but they're still really strong weapon skill pieces in a lot of slots, or even defensive slots for some of the tanks. I know the paladin body's insane for fast cast, and it has a lot of HP on it. So if you're wanting to level out your fast cast set of not dipping into yellow every time you cast a spell, it's a great choice.
And what also is great about this specific update was that it added that set bonus on your AF armor pieces. So you could get accuracy, magic accuracy increases with just having multiple pieces equipped, which was fantastic. Oh, and also ranged accuracy was on that set of lists too. So just even having 2 pieces of your AF equipped, you would get an additional 15 accuracy. So those
Yeah.
were huge because accuracy was actually one of the problems that people were having during that time because these were so much higher level from what the gear that we had. But at the same time, OU, which was another boss that was added after getting the 5 key items from the original 5, you could fight him and he dropped Regal accessories or other Regal gear. And those Regal pieces could count towards the set bonuses, which was really nice, especially for like mages. I know, like on my white mage, I use 4 pieces of my AF because I use my Regal Earring as my 5th piece to be able to get the 60 accuracy, which allows me to open up my leg slot to have my Chironic legs, which have the amino breaks on them, which is kind of interesting that you can manipulate those pieces in those ways to really fit what you're trying to do.
I mean, you're talking accuracy was a big problem back then. I mean, we still run into accuracy problems. I was just thinking about Bard AF3, just how strong for almost anything you need to enfeeble with on Bard, you're almost guaranteed to be using parts of the AF. I mean, there's some where, depending on your amount of duration you want to have on the song, sometimes you're using 5 out of 5. Like, it's a very, very strong set, and to pair it with the Regal Earring, it's incredible the amount of magic accuracy that you get and you're able to have just from a very older set. So, yeah.
Yeah, so and I really enjoyed OU because he incorporated all 5 of the original bosses in his fight. And if you haven't done OU, we'll actually talk about him later in this podcast, but he is unique and it's very cool to fight against him. But I was so happy they added him on that additional path that they added back in February.
Oh, yeah. I mean, OU is just a really fun fight. There's a lot going on. It happens really quickly, especially as our damage has jumped in abilities. So, I mean, one weapon skill can almost push you to another phase. And you're sitting there trying to remember, oh gosh, what in the world is about to happen? And if you're late on remembering, you can't just wait for it to come in the text. You have to be ready for these things, or else you're probably eating dirt.
For sure, yeah. And then in October 2017, we got another additional charge to the goblin. So then we went from being able to get 2 tags stored on him to 3 tags, which was just another boon that allowed you to be able to space it out a little bit more. And then we had the most recent update, which I was talking to you before we started recording this, how nice this newest update to Omen was for new and returning players because like you said, a lot of people have done Omen, and so Omen isn't shouted for as much. There's not a lot of link shells that do Omen as much, but they allowed it to where normal Sweetwater mobs can drop the scales that the bosses usually drop to be able to upgrade your AF to +3. They also allowed the alternative requirement, which was previously you had to beat a mid boss to be able to +3 your AF to getting a key item called a distorted fragment. And you could get that from killing 100 Sweetwater mobs or doing the original requirement of beating the mid-bosses. So it's nice that you go, oh, I'm going to have to go solo this event, but there's no way I'm going to be able to beat a mid-boss. This allowed you to just be able to kill the 100 Sweetwaters in order to be able to still get that benefit of plus 3ing your AF, because the scales are also dropping from those mobs.
Were Astrals always a drop from the Sweetwater mobs, or did that get added eventually? Because I don't actually see it on BG.
It was added around the time Dynamis was added and the augmenting process for your relics, mythics, and Empyreans. Because otherwise, at the time, they weren't used for anything else.
Right. So anybody who has seen people or the ridiculous lines that sometimes happen in Omen, a lot of that is because of the people soloing just for Astrals to R15 weapons and do things that way. So you've got that's one of the things I kind of wish they would open up is the amount of instances for Omen. I know it's an older zone and everything, but when the card campaign comes around and everybody's soloing cards and farming astrals and stuff like that, it gets pretty congested. But that was one of the things that I was really excited for this update with getting those scales, is I was soloing Omen pretty regularly at the time to get astrals and to get cards on things. So I have tons of scales saved up on both characters.
Definitely on Asura, the card campaign is probably the most miserable time doing Omen, because the lines are just about as long, if not longer, than when Ambuscade was, when they only had one queue for it. It was awful. You sit there for like an hour. Although, we did find out that you can do alternative things while waiting for the Omen queue. BT dubs, we were working on Aeonics while we were waiting for the Omen queue. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so if you're bored while you're waiting in the Omen queue and you have like 20 pages that take an hour and a half to get through, you can just go and do all the tier 1s, tier 2s, and probably some tier 3s even with some ragtag setup and Ryzen Jima for an Aeonic run. So you got that going on.
One of the interesting campaigns that doesn't get talked a lot about in Omen is the Omen Light Double Up campaign. Because a lot of people, they see the message about the lights going, and there's some formula, I don't know the exact formula, where if you get a certain amount or a certain number, you have a chance of getting a free floor, or a chest floor, as some people like to call it, after the mid boss or after the final boss when you're going to leave. And that double up light campaign gives you a much greater chance of not only getting the treasure floor, but also getting a better treasure floor. Some people don't realize that the boxes actually do change. There could be just a full brown box with bronze hooks, or there's ones that have the silver hooks and then the gold hooks. And the better quality the chests are, the higher chance you are of getting better rewards. I mean, I've gotten Omen bodies out of the chests, which is fantastic, because if you haven't done Omen, you don't know the struggle of trying to get Omen bodies. It is horrible, and I'm so sorry.
Or the struggle of trying to get gauntlets.
I mean, I'm still trying for cuffs, so we can talk about the struggle there.
Yeah, there's a lot of struggle. I enjoy the fact that the Omen drops are so rare and so exciting to get, but at the same time, it's like, okay, after a while, you've put so much into this. It's almost going to get to the point where um, the Shinryu stuff is, or whatever the newer dragon is, that nobody sees the dagger or the cloak or anything else besides the accessories from it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think the Omen bodies are on par with how rare, because like you were saying before, you have a better chance of getting an Omen body through a Mantrove which is still a luck-based system, versus trying to get them off a boss. Even with Treasure Hunter, they are still very, very rare. I think I've
Not,
only gotten 2 bodies from Omen in the amount of time I've played it, which is starting back in 2016. Oh my goodness.
yeah, I've never seen an Omen body drop, especially now, like how important people feel Dagon Breastplate is for the Embos fight. It's almost at the level of a requirement to have for V20 Embos to have that Dagon Breastplate on your Dark Knight, or you're just going to get a TP move off, is how people feel. Now, it could be the superstition of everybody thinking that you have to have an R15 weapon to do any kind of respectable damage in this game, and people might be exaggerating it. But from all the things I've heard from people who have cleared the content, it's a challenge. And I think that's one of the challenges even that our group would face at V20 is the lack of a Dagon breastplate on a Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle. I know I have it on Claire, but Claire plays Warrior. She doesn't play Dark Knight. And so that is one of those struggles where we did it with a Warrior and we cleared it, but we could see what happens when it's below 20% and we don't have the 2-hour capability of a Dark Knight that could steal TP from a mob for every swing, while also having that subtle blow too, to prevent it from gaining an astronomical amount of TP at the same time.
I still think it can be done, but that's another story for another
Yeah,
time.
that's another podcast episode.
Yeah, we can talk about the floors though, and all the crazy objectives, like the all wonderful zoning into Omen, and you get to see the wonderful tigers and the flies every time, just waiting for you on the first floor. Oh, so happy, and then you go in and just ruin their day.
Actually, speaking of those, that also changed in that November 2021 update, where they scaled those objectives based off of how many actual players enter the zone. So there used to be you always had to do a 6-step. Well, if you enter with one person, you may only have to do a 2-step instead, which is fantastic. Or you would only have to do 2 abilities instead of 10 abilities. So, like, those kind of changes also makes it easier where people can get those objectives, which helps them gain cards as well too, especially during the card campaign, which you get a higher chance of obtaining a card for clearing those objectives.
Yeah, I mean, I never looked at the objectives too closely when I was soloing, just because I was pretty well focused on trying to make sure that I didn't time out because I wasn't like AoE burning them or anything. I was just fighting them one by one. But if you go in with a group of 3 to 4 to 5 people, there's no reason that you can't do any level of these objectives because they're not hard by any means. You just actually have to pay attention and actually have to do them. I laughed the first time we ever went in because we got the restore at least 500 HP 10 times thing, and everybody was like, okay, who's got a cure cheat? And it brought me back to the good old days of the minstrel's ring on Bard or the medicine ring on White Mage, where you just sit in yellow HP and you just had that random macro that shifts your gear into yellow and stuff or shifts your HP into yellow, and it was kind of a fun
Yeah.
thought. But now I can just cure cheat on Paladin and break that objective really easily.
Yeah, that's also brings up a point where people need to think outside of the box, because if you don't have a black mage, then doing the 30k magic burst, and one of the things that I don't think people realize is that there's multiple different jobs that can actually do that magic bursting if you don't have a black mage or a scholar in your party. A lot of people get surprised when they see me bring out Ava and I do magic burst on my Geomancer, because they not only have Malaise and Acumen, but they also have an ability called Cardinal Chant, where depending on where the Geomancer is standing in relations to the monster that they're magic bursting, they could actually get a bonus to their magic attack, or even a bonus to their magic burst in general. If you stand east of the mob, you can get magic burst bonus. If you're like, I don't need the magic burst bonus, but I feel like I need more magic attack bonus, they could stand west of the mob. Or if they need a combination of magic accuracy with either of those two, they could stand northeast or northwest, depending on what they need. And there's a lot of geomancers that don't realize that's something you can do. And a lot of people forget that Red Mage is also a viable job for magic bursting. They can provide Frazzle 3, and if they're sub-scholar, they can give themselves Weather, and they actually have a magic burst, or not a magic burst, but a magic attack bonus job trait. So they can very much get those magic bursts done as well, too.
Yeah, but you don't even have to sit there and keep yourself looking at, oh, if I don't have a black mage or scholar or red mage or a geomancer, I can't do this. I mean, I've done it on Paladin. It can be done with Divine Emblem Holy 2. It takes a very niche set, and you have to actually spend some time making it, but I do also believe that maybe you could get Rune Fencer to do it. I kind of want to see if I can build lunge up enough to do that. I don't know if it can get that much damage, but it'd be kind of cool. I mean, and then there's also Ninja with Fute. Then, I mean, you can even go Blue Mage. So there's quite a few jobs that can do this magic burst that people just like shy away or, as you said, don't really know what all these different jobs can do because they're so used to a single-minded focus with what a job can do. And I mean, no one talks about where you're standing in coordination to a mob as Geomancer. Like that's just never a talk that comes up, but Geomancer has a pretty strong ability to nuke.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy that a lot of people don't use Geomancers to use their nuking capability. I mean, a lot of people joke around that Geomancer's only thing they can do is 2 bubbles and then stand there. Odyssey proved to people that they are more than just that, because like when you get Bard with no sub-job, they can't do anything. But if you get a Geo with no sub-job, they still have the ability to nuke. They have job traits that assist them with nuking as well too. They are actually pretty good at it.
Yeah, people have actually had to start exploring what these jobs can do without their sub jobs, thanks to Odyssey. And it's a lot of people like the Omen times was when Geo was really strong. So everybody just felt like you had to bring a Geo to Omen. And now we've just looked at so many different ways to supplement the same debuffs and the same buffs from other jobs that it's been pretty fun. I think that if we had the knowledge of all the different jobs that we do now back in the Omen days, it might have been a little bit different.
Well, I think the other thing that discourages people with the Magic Burst objective in itself, too, is that they get the Transcended mob and they don't realize how much HP the Transcended mobs have. They have actually over 60,000 HP. So you kind of can get 2 attempts at Magic Bursting depending on how strong or how weak your weapon skills were and your Magic Burst in itself. So if you get a skill chain going and you magic burst it and it's left at 54%, don't go, oh, this is a wasted mob, we don't have enough HP. If your weapon skills don't do a lot of damage and they maybe do 1 or 2%, give that magic burst another try. You might be surprised that you can still get that 30k magic burst objective on 2 tries on a single transcendent mob.
Yeah, if you're running Omen, I would kind of try to figure out these things. If you really want to go for a full-on card farm, I would figure out these things before you go in, as far as who has low damage weapons that are able to do these skill chains and do these weapon skills, because there's a few of them that you really need. I mean, even when you're having to do 18 physical weapon skills on mobs, you don't want people going in and just tor cleaving or savage blading or just unloading their full kit on mobs. You want to sit there and get these elemental weapon skills. You want to get your physical weapon skills. That's where a lot of people spam flat blade or fast blade or wasp sting and bring out all these weird weapon skills that we haven't seen in a while. Also,
Yeah, it's actually
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but funny that you bring up those specific weapon skills like wafting that nobody uses anymore. A lot of people don't realize on the elemental magic weapon skills, you can actually use energy drain and energy steal as one of those types of weapon skills because it technically is a dark based weapon skill and does count towards that objective, but deals absolutely no damage to the mob because normally it would just steal MP. So that's another good alternative than using Lead and Salute or Wildfire or any of those bigger elemental weapon skills.
Also, if you have one of those miserable tags in your Lua that if you don't specify the weapon skill, it will use this set, make sure you watch what your weapon skill does so that you don't just blow something up with a really empowered Burning Blade or Fast Blade or something in full Nyami gear or something. It can kind of hinder what you're doing. So watch your Luas, know what you're doing, plan ahead for this stuff. It does reap rewards to do all these random objectives.
Definitely want to do the objectives because that's how you get cards in Omen. If you're like, oh, I'm getting maybe one or two cards if I'm doing an actual boss round, or I get maybe three when I do the OU path, it's probably because you're not doing the objectives, which is the primary way of getting those cards, especially during the card campaign. You get so many cards if you actually do the objectives.
Yeah, you're talking like I think we've had runs with like 9 to 12 cards during the card campaign and stuff like that. Just and it adds up. Just the amount of cards you can get during these campaigns. So work with people. Be that person that goes out and yells and takes the shot and says, maybe I don't know Omen all that well, but I'll put together a group because there's bound to be somebody looking to join an actual group of people that doesn't have to pay money for an event and get cards and actually participate. There are people that want to do content in this game because this content is fun. I mean, yes, after doing card farms 852 different times, it's going to get a little boring. But people are willing to go out and actually do these events and not pay Gil for them and actually get the cards that they need for their jobs they're working on.
And I think one campaign that kind of gets overlooked because it's like question marks everywhere on people's heads is the double light campaign. What that actually does is every time you kill a monster, it can increase your lights. And what that allows Omen to do is it helps with getting the free treasure floors. Those treasure floors are amazing, by the way, and there's 3 different tiers of those treasure floors after a mid-boss run or when you're leaving Omen. You could get a standard brown box with either a bronze, silver, or gold locket. The higher quality the chest, the more likely you are to get better spoils or for there to be less gil boxes. Because I know there's been some people that get the treasure floors and they're like, oh, I'm going to get my 100 gil from this box. I have seen Omen bodies come out of those boxes. I've seen Regal equipment come out of those boxes. They are fantastic. That double up light campaign is amazing. It is usually tied with a card campaign, so most people skip it, but it's still fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and you still talk about the crafting materials to make Moonbeam stuff. Everybody's always running around with their Moonbeam gear and things like that. It's a big deal. This event is still very, very, very viable for even modern day stuff.
Most definitely. And I think a lot of people, like you were saying before, take this event for granted because it came out in 2016 and they're just like, oh, it's going to be face roll easy because we have all of this new gear. But if you're not prepared for the 6 final Omen bosses, they are going to wreck your face. And they're all unique. And the biggest one, which is OU, takes what you've learned from the original 5 bosses and implements it all into himself. And he's got probably the worst ability at the very end. Well, I say worst, but you can It depends on your party, but he could be super easy or he could be challenging in like the last 15%.
Yeah, it depends how low manning you really are and how well your gear is set up to do what you need to do. But at the same time, it can be a hurdle when you're first learning this content and stuff like that. You've got to be ready for the changes in all these bosses because they come at specific intervals. And I mean, let's just dive into them. I mean, there's starting with Master Fu himself, who has been just a great friend of mine recently. As Omen is an older content, I like to experiment and do different ways of tanking it, and I enjoy tanking content. I think it's really fun. So I like to bring my ninja and tank that way. Or most recently, my Red Mage Sub Paladin for the Fu run, which please let's never do that one again. Red Mage Paladin is very, very reliant on buffs, and our friend Fu has this lovely move at every 25% and even at 10% that dispels everything and absorbs. So it's not great. It's really not a good fight for Red Mage Paladin, but we did it. It was fun.
Well, not only does he do it at each of the 25% and 10%, he will also do it the moment you aggro him. And the distance of Ebullient Nullification is 20. So people that are buffing up and the tank goes to pull Fu, if he's pulling it in the direction of your party, Fu will walk a couple of inches or a couple of yalms forward and then use it, which if people aren't either backs against the wall or in a different area than where the tank is pulling it, they may still get hit by Fu, and he's no joke if he gets more than 7 buffs. He will just one-shot everybody regardless of your gear.
Yeah, you almost want to give your tank dummy buffs to pull this. And you also, as a tank, have to know that you can't claim this at max range. If you claim this at max range and over 20 and you run out of range or you do something or your entire alliance just got drawn in. Congratulations, you just wiped. So you have to stay within that 20 yalms of him. Usually you try to stay around the 10 yalms to make it safe, but you want to stay within that distance of him, and that even goes if somebody pulls hate. If you've got a ranger or corsair shooting at max range and stuff, and all of a sudden they pull hate, they need to be ready to run in. Because if everyone gets drawn in and you push percentage, all of a sudden you're wiping because your entire group just got dispelled and absorbed, and he's now going to start one-shotting people.
The mages also need to be like on the ball to rebuff your tanks too, because they do lose majority of their buffs. I mean, there's only a couple of buffs they don't take. They don't take Aftermath. They don't take Dematerialize off Geomancers. They don't take runes off your Rune Fencer. And of course, they're not going to take re-raise if those jobs got a rose and had to start fighting again. So those are some of the buffs that you can have up that don't count towards the 4 to 7 buff sweet spot that people like to talk about. But there's also a downside if you don't have Fu steal your buffs. So like if you have a Puppet Master tank Fu, which has been done before, I have seen it, I've done it, and you don't have the Puppet Master themselves stand in range to have buffs taken from them, he will put an insane intimidation rate up.
Yeah.
I'm sure Karm loved that.
Oh, it was miserable. When we did it, we didn't have the greatest time when we did this with Red Mage Paladin. It got a little messy. And things started going questionably, but at one point he didn't get the correct amount of buffs, if any, stolen from us, and we just could not move. until we got the correct amount of buffs taken from him. It was just, you're sitting there hating life. You could not cast on him. You could hardly attack. You could hardly do anything.
Yeah, not only could you not cast on him, you were getting intimidated trying to cast on yourself. I remember you were yelling about how you couldn't get phalanx up because you kept getting intimidated of yourself trying to put phalanx up because he was just in your peripheral, essentially. You're just like, oh god, I can't look at this mob. Oh my goodness. I'm so intimidated by him. Oh no.
Yeah, he was intimidating, to say the least. But yeah, it kind of goes back to this where you still just have these moments where you think this is old 2016 content, you can just laugh at it. But if you don't take a strong setup, I mean, or at least something that can adequately tank this, it's hard. It hurts. I mean, it's a Catare mob. They're all Catare mobs, so they do all the awful things that Catares do while still being boss level. I can't remember I think they're 129 or 135? 139. Yeah, they're level 139 mobs. They will mess you up.
They sure will. Especially what's really obnoxious with the Catare mobs is that below 25%, they all gain the ability Interference, which takes some of your buffs away, knocks you back, and deals dark damage to you, which most people don't have a resistance to dark damage. So you will start taking more. And the fact that most of the time people tank these mobs in the center of the arena instead of against the wall, you just see any type of damage dealer or tank or mage getting knocked back and just trying to keep the buffs up, especially with songs and core rolls, because they can really start getting out of whack once Interference starts coming up. And then you're like, oh crap, we have another nullification coming because it hit 25%, and then you have another one at 10%. So you're trying to find that balance of not getting screwed over by having too many buffs up and too many people getting hit by it, but also making sure he's not going to knock anyone into the other people for that ability to go off.
Yeah, it can be a stressful fight to say the least. It's fun. I mean, but you're looking at some really good gear from Fu. I mean, you've got the Nikmadu ring, which everybody loves. That subtle blow too. I mean, you've got quad attack on it. You got some good strength and dex. The Shulmanu collar is no joke for dragoons and beastmasters alike. You've got the Nizrak Jerkin, which is the Omen body piece from it, which isn't the greatest, but I mean, there's still use for it. There's all these really good things from, I mean, this is just boss number one.
Yeah, and then you have our next buddy on the list, which is Koyu. Koyu is actually really interesting. There's a couple of different strategies that people have done for Koyu, where one of them is just standing in a straight line for his 25% moves, which is called Unfaltering Bravado, where he just shoots out 10,000 damage in basically a straight line. So a lot of people have to stand right on top of each other. You can move your bubbles to be, instead of being right on top of him, moving it slightly closer to the party to also be one of those things that hit. People like to bring pet jobs and they'll line up behind the pets instead. So those will get hit. He was a little obnoxious because if you were doing this in alliance aspect and you had an avatar that pulled hate and was getting hit by Unfaltering Bravado, it would only affect that party, which was unique and people needed to look out for. So a lot of people didn't use summoners, or they made sure that nobody stood next to the avatars for that particular reason. So they would sacrifice the avatars in that case, which is good. But it's the same with Puppet Masters. If you have a pup tanking it, it would also have that same effect. It would only hit the puppet master and anybody in that party if they were in a straight line behind the puppet tanking it. So definitely a little quirky with this one. And he also does 100 Fists instead of Mighty Strikes, which is what Fu's 2-hour ability was. So something also to be like, okay, he's 100 Fisting. We're close to one of these percentages. Maybe we should hold off on damage until 100 Fist is over with, because 10k basically needles can bring your party down really low if you're low manning this specific boss.
Yeah, and the great part about him, he also has In Curse, In Petrify, In Paralyze, In Silence on melee hits. Gains these additional effects on his melee hits. And he also has the lovely aura of Prevents Parry and Shield Block after using Unfaltering Bravado. So it's really fun to tank these mobs. They're all really friendly to your tank. Yeah, they're a lot of just fun, for lack of a better word. But I didn't actually know this reading on BG. If you wipe, he gets the ability to do Unfaltering Bravado again. Which,
That's only if his HP goes back to full, though. So, like,
yeah,
if
full
you
reset.
wipe. Yeah, so if you wipe and you have somebody just continuously sack him, like putting either Dia, Bio, Requiem, or Eddie sort of DOT to keep him down to those percentages, it'll act as if you're still fighting him and it won't fully reset those.
Yeah, that's nice. He also has really high evasion.
He does.
Wow.
He's a monk, so he gets dodge. I mean, he doesn't actually use the ability dodge, but that's what's giving him that extra evasion, is that job ability that monks get to have a higher evasion. It's kind of unique. So you definitely want to have Torpor down if your melees are having difficult and you do have a GON party. Or you can use, not Collaborator, Conspirator on Thief, which also raises your accuracy as well too. If you got a Dancer, you could do Quick Step. It will help lower his evasion. It's just some other alternatives to help be able to raise your accuracy on this guy.
Yeah, not only does he do all those other fun things, he also has access to Comet and Meteor. So not only is he dropping your entire group 10,000 damage lower, so if you're 6-manning it, it pretty much hurts. You're also getting a Meteor right after half the time, so you still have to take these seriously. We've said it a lot, but there's a lot that goes on in these mobs, and it's still something that has to be done correctly.
And just like you were talking with Fu, Koyu actually also has some really nice drops aside from his scales. You can get an Merker Earring, which is an amazing accuracy piece with store TP for pet jobs. You also have the Isker Gorget, which is a fantastic, let me repeat, fantastic ranged necklace. Very good. I use it on both Ranger and on Core. I love it. And then it has Udog Jacket, which you don't hear a lot of people talk about Udog Jacket, but it is amazing for magic attack bonus pets. Puppet Master, it was one of the weaker pieces because they don't really have much for nuking pups, so that one's amazing. And for summoners as well too, because what's nice about it is it helps also the master of these pet jobs have damage taken and resist sleep. Like, it's overall a really good piece, and I don't think it's talked about a whole lot because not a lot of people play pet jobs other than Astroflow, Astro Conduit, Summoner Burn.
Yeah, and like we said, they're so rare that there hasn't been a lot of testing probably, and the common public that actually gets these things don't get to see it as much. I mean, nobody really talked about Dagon Breastplate until it became part of the Imbo strategy. Now everybody's like, oh, Dagon Breastplate, oh, Dagon Breastplate. But nobody talked about it until now.
Yeah, Odyssey definitely did open up a lot of looking into different gear sets and different types of gear to really enhance those jobs too. And a lot of the times the Omen bodies do come up And we'll talk about a couple of other ones aside from Dega and Breastplate as we get through those NMs.
And then we get to Key. Oh boy.
I think he is everyone's least favorite, and I love his mechanic.
Oh,
It's
it's awesome.
very unique, and just a lot of people stray away from him. I'm not sure why. I mean, I get why, but what's really cool about Key is you can have a side job that's not really doing a whole lot still be able to help in the fight because Key himself has an innate regen while his shield is up. So you'll see these shields kind of going around him while you're fighting him. And depending on what he is casting at the time, will dictate what element you should nuke. I know on BGWiki it talks about his spikes, but if you can't really see the spikes, seeing the spells will help a lot more. If you see him casting Addle, that is a fire-based spell, you want to start nuking water, which will just help bring down that innate regen that he has. On that note, do not, I repeat, do not use a Helix on him, because if he switches spells, so like if you did Hydro Helix and then he started casting a wind spell, which means you need to start doing ice instead, he will gain HP for all the ticks of the Hydro Helix. So it basically adds to his regen.
Yeah, not to mention the fun of he has the permanent elemental spikes you're talking about. They also inflict slow, which overwrites haste. It's not fun. A lot of people will just go in with triple march setup because you're not going to be able to keep haste. You just can't. Even a tank that's going to resist slow, because I hardly ever get slowed, but I see my haste drop every now and then. So it's like, oh, where'd my haste go? Oh, just for some reason, haste still gets dispelled even if you don't get slowed. I don't know why it interacts that way. I think it's kind of odd, but I've seen my haste just randomly go, and I don't understand it. But this is definitely one where you want to think about using triple haste, especially if you're using a DD or a melee DD to open skill chains for you.
I've also seen people use Puppet Master tanks for this particular one. They could either build the attachments to where the puppet will use 1,000 TP every single time. I've seen them where the Puppet Master himself will open the skill chain and then the puppet will close it as well too. They figured that portion out. Or they will have the puppet open itself, have the scholar close it just to conserve stratagems, and then do a magic burst off of that. And it's really interesting seeing the puppet master builds with those because they're not very common. And it's very surprising that people don't use it as frequently because it doesn't care about the slow spikes. And it has so much HP that it could technically survive its most deadly move on its own. But you could have the option of retreating your pet as that move's going off just to prevent it from dying, just like you would have a tank run away from this ability.
Yeah, so it's 75, 50, 25, and 10. It does a lovely move called Dancing Fullers. It does 2,500 AoE damage for each person in range when it goes off. So, and that does count geo bubbles. So if you have a geo bubble in, it counts as another person. It isn't affected by DT gear in any sort, so you have to make sure that if you're tanking this, you are ready to move out.
Yeah, and just like the Fu mob that we were talking about, if your tank runs beyond 20, just to avoid dancing fullers, it can also draw in your entire party, and then that ability could go off. And, you know, depending on how big your party is, or if, you have a Lupin or you have pets, you could draw everybody in and just wipe the entire alliance. This one can be a little tricky, and a lot of people typically prefer to do the magic burst method because even though it might be slower for some groups, that again it could be faster because people are building black mages and scholars more because of Odyssey with Ongo. Um, but they may use the DD method, which is not very common to see because Key himself has a significant reduction to physical damage, especially while those shields are up. But I have seen somebody do a samurai burn down of him where they just, when the shield's up, they do a skill chain and then they try to burn him down as fast as possible. And you can't do a skill chain during that. You have to do white damage. So a lot of samurais were using the Empyrean, getting their Aftermath 3 up, and then while the shield is down from performing a skill chain, just using that white damage to take him down. And then again, shield goes up, they perform a skill chain, and they just rinse and repeat this the entire time.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on in these fights. You have to be coordinated. And if you are doing the Black Mage method, your tank has to be ready. Like when you're pushing 82, 83%, your skill chain is most likely going to push that 70%. So when you see an ability, you have to be ready to run. If you're not ready, you aren't going to make it. It's
Well, not only do they have to be ready for Dancing Fullers, they may see him just charging a move. I've seen this happen a lot. Somebody will see Key charging and it's not Dancing Fullers and they run away and then they start running back as he's charging Dancing Fullers because they don't realize his second weapon skill is the painful one.
yeah, it takes a lot of attention, a lot of learning these fights. I've watched a lot of people learn it, and I've had to learn it myself. And I mean, I've died to it before myself. It's not, it happens. So learn these fights, go in with a plan, and have fun with them, really, because they are really unique and just different from really anything else in the game. And of course, he has some crazy good drops. Start with the Amarapi Shield, which of course is mostly known for its enhancing magic duration plus 10% on it. But even more recently, it's been used as a nuking shield as an offhand for Bunzy's Rod, with that magic accuracy plus 38 and magic attack bonus plus 38, which is kind of nutty for a shield. It's also used in combination with Daybreak for a lot of magic accuracy debuffs or things like that. It's really, really strong shield.
I think a lot of people overlook the intelligence that's also on that shield because they're used to like the Enki strap, which has 10 intelligence on it. And they're like, oh, I just got to pair that with the Marin staff or another staff when they're trying to nuke because of the intelligence difference. It's like you do get intelligence on Amarapi Shield. You also get the mind, like you were saying, for the magic accuracy on certain debuffs. Like it's actually a really good combination of multiple different uses other than that magic or the enhancing magic duration like you were talking about.
Yeah, it's insanely invaluable shield. I use it in a lot of macros. It's really paid its dividends and was really awesome to get. I was lucky enough to do back-to-back keys and got both my characters in Amarapi back-to-back runs. I won't forget that. I was over the moon excited.
Oh, yeah.
I was really excited.
I remember that. That was a crazy day because usually you don't see it very often. You'll see Lugobanda earring, which is also an amazing earring, and we'll get back to it for a second. But you getting those back-to-back Amarapi shields was just like, holy moly, we didn't get scaled on something we actually needed.
Yeah, it was wild. I was pretty excited about it, to say the least. But yeah, Lugobanda earring, I mean, a lot of people look at it for the blood pack damage and the avatar accuracy and stuff like that, but it's really a great idle piece for DT sets, for scholars, for black mages, summoners, and geos.
Yeah, I like using it on my Geomancer because of the magic evasion and magic defense bonus on it. A lot of people don't realize that if you have magic damage taken capped out, it is good to put magic defense bonus in those other slots and magic evasion because you could avoid enfeebles that way. And then you could also take less damage from nukes, especially if you're standing in range of monsters, depending on what you're fighting.
Yeah, and I mean, you're just adding more value to your idol set, to your gear. And if you do take accidental damage, or even like in Omen, if you get randomly pulled in because somebody does something wrong, you're getting pulled in an idle piece that at least has some resistances to where you're not just going to explode. And then, of course, there's the ever elusive Chamashrobe, which is beautiful. I would
I
love
love my
one.
Chamashrobe. I love it so
Yeah,
much.
I would love to have one. It's really pretty. I, I mean, resist silence, refresh +3, physical damage taken, high magic evasion. It's got it all, really. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece.
Yeah, I kind of wish that physical damage taken was more either magic or just straight damage taken, but I'll take the fact that it's physical damage taken nonetheless, because as a white mage or any mage job that I usually play, that one's always in my idol set because it's so fantastic. I'll lose the one refresh from not using Jackery Robe on Scholar or Geo just to make sure to have the resist silence.
Oh, absolutely. Like that is a fantastic piece, and there really aren't that many body pieces or even pieces in the game that have good refresh on them and good DT stats. Like it's a struggle, and I feel like a lot of times, especially for me, I've been going back and forth with some of my Luas to figure out, I guess, the best balance of having refresh and having DT and having magic evasion and stuff. And I have a lot of sets that I'll toggle my idle sets whether or not I need to go full refresh because I'm struggling, or if I'm pseudo refresh and still prioritizing damage taken down, stuff like that. So it's an insane piece. I would love to have it for my white mage.
I will put a little side note that if you do want to try doing a melee strat for key, I'm not condoning you. I'm actually cheering you on for that. Just remember, even though key is a black mage type mob, he for some reason is extremely evasive. So you want to
Mhm.
make sure that you have the accuracy. Again, we're going back into the accuracy portion in order to be able to not only hit him, but make sure you don't do Fudo whiffs.
Yeah, and you have to prioritize things like that because you're also getting slowed. So 3 of your bard songs are taken up by marches, and then you can use an accuracy, but then you're not going to have a minuet. You're not going to have any defensive songs. So it, it's it's an interesting setup, and you've really got to think through how you're buffing yourself for these fights.
I do also want to point out that a lot of people forget that even though he does do benediction, he will not use Dancing Fullers on those percentages again. So if you got him down to 25% and he used Dancing Fullers then, but at the same time he simultaneously used Benediction, he will not use Dancing Fullers again at 75, 50, and 25. So a lot of groups, including ours, will do Tabula Rasa and just burn him down as fast as possible to get him back to the percentages that he used before benediction. So that way it just speeds it up a little bit and you don't have to worry being like, oh man, I got to do that all over again. You
Oh
don't have to worry
man.
about your oh man, you don't have to worry about your tank turning and running at those same percentages just at any new ones that you get to.
Yeah, and he likes to be a pain in the rear end. Sometimes you get really lucky and he'll use benediction at 70%. Other times he'll just be a jerk and wait till 20%. And you'll feel like, oh, maybe he's not going to use it. No, he's going to use it. Don't get your
Yeah,
hopes
he
up.
will use
Don't
it.
get your hopes up.
Yeah. He'll use it at some point in the fight, so just be ready for it. But moving on to
Gin and
Jin.
juice. I mean, gin.
Jin's one of those I think is kind of underrated Omen bosses. He is one of the easier ones in my opinion, but if you're not careful, he can be kind of a pain. One of the things is that he absorbs all magic damage. So if you're doing an all melee setup, that does include skill chains. And it's usually once he has his shield up. And he gets the shield whenever he uses Steigen's Cipher.
He's a special little flower. He is a thief mob. So once again, high evasion. We're back to this accuracy check. We're back to he does use perfect dodge. Woohoo! Yay!
Yay, thief mobs!
They're so much fun. His big thing is 0 hour. It's an AoE magic-based throat stab, hate reset, and inhibits your TP. That can be resisted, I believe. I don't know.
It can be resisted by magic damage taken.
No, the inhibit TP I think can be resisted.
Oh, that's the one you're trying. Sorry, I was looking at something else.
No, I understand what you're saying. But yeah, it is a hate reset, but at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. This guy is definitely goes on the list of easier. It's kind of a slosh now. You just kind of run at him and kill him. He doesn't do too many things. Compared to the other ones, I think he was kind of the joke of the bunch.
Well, so what can get a lot of new groups with Jin is when he does use 0 hour, so putting everybody in critical HP is you'll see a Beige do Kuraga 4 or the dreaded Kuraga 5, I'm sorry, and pull hate because they don't realize that his 75, 50%, 25, and 10 0 hour puts you in critical and hate resets.
Yeah, so you've got to make sure your paladin or your tank or whoever is tanking this mob is ready to get enmity back because you've got to cure through it, but you also don't want to set yourself up to have a bad time with, oh, by the way, why not? He has break and break and stone 4 and stone 5, so he'll happily cast those after he does 0 hour. He'll just enjoy making your life a living heck. So make sure you're ready for these things.
I've seen that happen where he did 0 hour, a mage cured, and he turned around and cast a breaka, and the entire back line went down to critical. And this was before Majesty was out. And so you would have a paladin trying to single target cure anybody else that's within range. But then you got the Hellish Crescendo that goes off, which hurts, and has a very potent paralyze that goes off. And so you have this paladin trying to cure and getting paralyzed trying to do it, and DDs are still attacking him, being like, I got this, guys.
Yeah. Don't forget the AoE curse. Woohoo!
Yeah. But he's definitely not as scary, but if taken lightly, he can wreck you if he so wants to.
Yeah, and his drops are kind of I guess almost the least kind of underwhelming. I mean, there's some good ones.
Don't say that.
There's some good ones, but
I love his drops.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Compared to the
Yamarang.
other ones.
Okay, so hold on. Listen to me here. You got this? Okay, you got Yamarang, which helps with people that are in high accuracy needing situations, especially thieves, ninjas, dancers, rune fencers, if you so wish. You could use it for your lunges if you're fighting higher mobs as well too. But it also has evasion and magic evasion. Specifically, that magic evasion in a TP set is fantastic. Helps those DD jobs, your thief, ninja, dancers, avoid getting paralyzed or slowed or any of those other debuffs. And then you got Digner Ring, which I don't care what you say, is one of the best magic weapon skilling rings for core and ranger.
Dinger's
So
good.
great.
Dinger ring is good. I give you that. And I don't get me wrong. I love my Ashira harness. It's kept my bard from getting paralyzed many, many, many a times. It's
Well, it's also nice in like a hybrid DT set for the actual melee jobs that can wear it because it has the resist paralyze on there. It has the damage taken -7 while still providing accuracy attack and store TP 10.
Yeah, I mean, I use it on my melee bard set. I think it's a great piece. It does a lot of good things, but they're great drops. We'll just go with that. They're great drops.
They're so good.
And you get the title Gin Gagger.
You never noticed his title?
No, I can't say I have, but that's special.
You should go back to Foo's. Go back and look at what Foo's title is. His is fantastic.
Foo Fighter. Okay. That's the thing.
It is. It's so great. They really put some thought into the titles for Omen bosses.
Yeah,
Not gonna lie, I love seeing all of them.
I don't know about Gagger though. I mean,
well, just wait till the next one. Yeah. Wait till we get to the next boss.
Jin does make
another
me gag. I will say that. I'm not a fan of Jin.
No, just because of the 0 hour, or
no, the liquor. You didn't catch that one. Sorry, that one went over your head.
Yeah, it did. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at jokes sometimes, as everybody will find out while listening to this podcast. I'm so sorry. Or has watched me stream. It goes over my head most of the time. I'm so sorry, guys.
Yeah, 5 minutes later, if you don't explain it. Oh! Just kidding. All right, moving on. Here we are, Kin. Our kin, our friend.
This one, I think, other than Key, people hate this one. And terrible. This one brings me back to old Abyssia days because Kin is literally Ronnie. And if you don't know who Ronnie is, they are the Queen Cataray in Abyssia Altep that you get the Epona's ring from. I love Ronnie. Ronnie can screw you over if you are not paying attention. This is one of those mobs you cannot zerg. You have to pay attention to this mob. Can be super easy, can go down really quickly, or you can time out because you have DDs that want to stay on the mob.
Yeah, it absorbs physical damage during its TP moves. So if it's using a TP move and you weapon skill it, congratulations! You just healed it. You need to wait for it to cast magic damage or to be meleeing to do physical damage to it. Adel is your best friend in this fight because it makes his cast go longer, so you have a larger window where he's not doing TP moves. But when you get under 20%, has the same mechanic as every other stinking mob in the game, and it will spam weapon skills. So you have to time everything.
And also on the flip side, if Kin is casting, he will absorb magic damage. So if you're just like, oh, I'll take a Corsair and they can let in salute it all day, no, because the same thing, if he's starting to cast Meteor, you are going to cure it with lead in salute. Also will be cured by skill chain damage, so make sure either everybody weapon skills at the same time or only have one person dealing damage.
Or just use Savage Blade. Savage Blade, Black Halo, yeah. I mean, that's what the game has come to. Savage Blade is king.
I don't think that people also realize that there is a list of spells that he uses in general on the BGWiki page, like Comet, Holy, Drain, etc. But Kin also gains access to spells based off of the time of day you are fighting him. So if you are on Fire's Day, he will be more likely to cast Fire 5, Fire 6, Faraga 4, which can also be used to your benefit. If you go on Dark's Day, you will see those meteor spams. If you go on Light's Day, he will spam Holy like no other, and that is annoying because there's no way to slow down Holy.
And he really enjoys Asper 3. I hate tanking this mob on Paladin because it's just the Asper is real. It's definitely a real problem in this fight for Paladins without a dedicated refresh. It can be rough.
Well, Kin's also unique in his abilities that he can use. If you're using a Ninja Paladin or Rune Fencer on the hate list, he will gain access to an ability called Death Sentence. But like when you went Red Mage sub Paladin to this fight, you never saw Death Sentence
Sure.
because we didn't actually have a tank in the fight on the hate list. So a lot of people don't realize that because they're like, oh, we need to have a tank, so we're going to have either a paladin or a rune fencer. You could have a puppet master tank this and never see Death Sentence. Granted, the Doom's not hard to get rid of,
Yeah.
but some people just see Doom and then freak out.
Yeah, the really fun mechanic of this mob comes from Target, which Target is pretty easily. It's pretty easy to deal with, but at the end of the day, you have to be ready to either bounce hate somehow, take hate with a thief, or another way you can do it is cover cheese. If somebody else gets hate, the paladin can cover them, and it immediately removes the target. So target causes Ken's eyes to light up, and after a certain amount of time, or a minute and 30, he will send you into the 11th dimension, which is just as fun as it sounds. It's a 3-minute duration terror, and you're not resisting it. I'll tell you that it's not. It's not happening. It's not fun.
Yeah, and what's also interesting with 11th dimension that people don't realize is you could have one of your backline go sub paladin and use cover on the person that's targeted, and that can also count as removing the eyes because you are now the target versus the person that you're covering, which will make that effectively nullify it. So it's not that scary. But like you were saying, you can use Accomplice, you can use Caper Emissary if you're taking a Scholar with you. If you got Summoner, you could do Pacifying Ruby. Or if it's on a DD, because you're just going all DDs on this instead of taking a tank, just make sure they're Sub Dragoon or just have them turn and
Just
just
bounce
get
it around.
hit in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, it still has to be dealt with, though. These are not mechanics you can just ignore. You have to deal with them in some way, because it's really not great to have a person 3-minute duration in the 11th dimension of Doom. It's not fun. I promise. It's just not a good time.
Well, and what's interesting also is when you actually get hit with 11th dimension, he typically will go to the next person on the hate list. So he doesn't stay on that tank. He will shift over and go after somebody else and just ignore the person in the 11th dimension.
Yeah. See, look at these drops. You can't look at these drops and then look at the ones previous and be like, oh yeah, they're comparable.
I didn't say they're comparable. I just said that they're at least good and not to give them a bad rap.
They got a bad rep compared to everybody else. I mean, it's like
They don't.
it's like the kid you made fun of in school. Like he was part of the school, he was part of the crew, but you still made fun of him because he was just the little guy.
It's okay. This is a kin kicker as your title anyway, so we're just going to kick our kins all day.
Just a disclaimer: we do not promote bullying here at Next Level Podcast. Copyright 1942. Anyway. Drops the all-powerful and all-famous Utu grip. It speaks for itself.
Like a DD staple.
If you have the ability to use it, you're probably using it. There's not many alternatives. I mean,
But Karm,
no.
I can't use it on my Savage Blading Warrior.
You have a blurred shield.
But I can't get the dex bonus in my weapon skills. Because I can't put it on with my blurred shield.
Moving on, because that comment. But yeah, you can't use a grip with one-handed weapons. That being said, but for anybody who's two-handing, which is War, Dark, Samurai, Dragoon, and Rune are on this. I mean, it's even a great piece for Rune. A lot of people kind of toss it to the side, and I kind of was skeptical about when I would use it on Rune. But the accuracy is insane on it, and then you've got still 70 HP. That's pretty good for a grip. You're not really seeing a lot of grips that have that much HP. And it can balance out a set on Rune Fencer when you do have a lot of sets that, let's face it, Rune Fencer's gear swaps are pretty bad. Like they're not great. So the extra 70 HP is definitely welcomed on Rune.
It's also a nice DD grip for Rune Fencer for when you have a paladin and you're kind of just the backup tank that you can provide the DPS while also being that backup.
Well, it helps you keep enmity too. I mean, Rune Fencers has the awesome. I mean, they have more things at their disposal to keep enmity via damage than Paladin does. I mean, yes, Paladin's getting a lot more since the induction of Sakpada, but before that, before Sakpada gear, Rune Fencer was the damage tank. There wasn't really the competitor for it. That was just in your face. This was so good. And then you've got, I mean, the Illibrat ring. Another great piece. Store TP, attack, dex, agility. It's a strong candidate for any jobs that can use it, really.
And what's nice on Illibrat rank is a lot of the jobs that are on it are low attack based jobs. I mean, you have White Mage on there, for crying out loud. They need all the attack they can get for any DPSing if you do want to go out and swing your club at things.
Yeah, and a lot of the jobs on there have dex mods in their weapon skills, like Thief, like Ninja, like Blue Mage. These are all jobs that thrive on high dex. So, but yeah, they're attack starved, so it gives you the dex you want, but it also gives you the attack you want. I mean, yeah, it'd be a little bit crazy if it had strength on it too, which I wouldn't complain about, but you still get that attack for those jobs that are attack starved, even the Beastmaster that needs the attack, the Bard that needs the attack. I mean, you've got all these different jobs that can throw this on. So it's a really good one. And then, of course, we've got the one, the only, the Dagon Breastplate.
Which actually for a while was an LOL piece because a lot of people were looking at it and going, oh, there's other pieces I can get multi-attack and still have the accuracy and attack on. But it does have that subtle blow too, which not a lot of heavy DDers get. And it also has resist slow, which if anybody's a melee job will fully understand why that's amazing. And then it also provides crit hit rate 4% as well too, just to add that umph while wearing a non-optimal piece depending on the situation you're in because you need the subtle blow.
I also wonder though, like what set they were truly thinking of, that they were like, let's put haste plus 1%. Let's just put haste plus 1.
Okay, at least it gives you haste. It's not like the high tier battlefield with Odin where none of his pieces have haste on them.
Yeah, but it's 1%.
But maybe you only need that 1% because you're going to, put on Safili Belt that gives you 9.
If you've got a build that is so perfect that this 1% is the make or break to a tier, then I'm impressed.
I'm gonna build it now just for you.
Okay.
I'm gonna get it down to the exact percentage. I'm gonna find it.
Do it. I mean, I know when you think about dual wield on ninjas, there's that I think when ninjas come in, they're like one dual wield shy of being delay capped or something, and if you overcap, it's bad for your delay and stuff like that. So there is a time and place, but it's almost like they were laughing at us when they put that on there. Haste plus
I think
1%.
Dancer's worse when it comes to the balancing act with gear,
Oh yeah,
because it
absolutely.
depends on if you want to use haste samba or not, and if you do, then you're switching things around even more. But yeah, 1%, I will still say it's nice that it at least has haste, because people again will look at the Odin pieces and be like, OMG, these are fantastic, and then try to put them in TP sets and not be haste capped because they don't
You
have
really
anything on
are
them.
optimistic about that 1%. I'm
And I
impressed.
was optimistic about Jin's drops. Are we gonna fight about this?
I mean, I'm really impressed that you were just so optimistic about this
I am
1%
selling this
haste.
1%. I am selling it.
I think you were on the dev team when they made it. They're like, you know, it would be funny. Let's just put that 1%. Yeah, and we'll live and die by the sword. We'll die on this 1%. There is a build out there that just has to have this 1% haste. And
Yes, I will figure it out for you. And it's actually going to be a glorious build. And you're going to be so amazed by
to be
it.
fair, it's probably on Paladin. That's the worst
I
part.
mean, it might be.
The worst part is it's probably on Paladin. But the Dagon breastplate with the subtle blow 2 plus 10 is just to find that much subtle blow 2 on these specific jobs is rare. So it really comes in handy for these situations. So a lot of, like we have talked about, a lot of people are after this body piece simply for imbos.
And then we have the final one. The final honorable king of all the Catarays and Omen.
King of not putting out.
The one that doesn't want to drop anything but scales.
Or
Oh,
belts.
you.
Or belts.
No, yours it's the gem. For some reason, he doesn't want to drop the gem.
No, he doesn't want to. He drops everything but the other stuff. He likes to drop belts. I don't
He
think
does
he
like
can
belts.
drop belts for us anymore or necklaces.
So Oyu is interesting in the fact that if you fought the other 5 Cataray, the person taking you in, that's the key, taking you into Omen must have the first 5 Cataray's key item in order for his teleport to even take you up to his floor.
Everyone in the party expends all their beads. Because when you kill any of the previous 5 NMs, you get what's called their bead. So when you kill Jin, you get a Jin bead key item. Kill Fu, you get a Fu bead key item. Even if you only have 2 of the 5 and someone takes you into OU, it still expends your beads as well. So make sure people are ready to know that when they go into OU, they are going to lose their beads.
Yeah, we used to do, when we had alliances that we would take in, we would bring alts and come up with specific strategies that we could leave the alts out of Omen to then do multiple OU runs, because then we would just have the alts trading, coming into the alliance and giving up their key items just to get the rest of the alliance to do multiples of these. So just remember, it's anybody that's in the party while inside Omen that will lose their beads.
Yeah, not only is he a gaggle of laughs to deal with, he's also a red mage. So he does lots of red mage things and has great magic accuracy. He still has all the standard Cataract TP moves, but like we said, he gets the ability to do every other move. Ebullient Nullification at 95%, Unfaltering Bravado at 75%, Dancing Fullers at 60, Zero Hour at 45, Target at 30, and then he kind of gets into his own stuff. But he also uses Chain Spell at 65, so you have to be ready to deal with all of these different things. And he has Meteor, he has all that fun, just pain, he has Impact. So he's going to Chain Spell Impact your face. It's great.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize until they're actually fighting him, and sometimes they panic when they see this. When he does get to 55%, he does level up. So you do need to make sure that your group does have the build for that increased level, which is going to hinder your attack. It's going to hinder your accuracy against him. Your weapon skills aren't going to nearly do as much. He's got more magic evasion now, so your debuffs might not land as well.
Yeah, he has a pretty strong resistance to dark stuff as well. I mean, he has high resistances anyway, but you're not really landing a lot of dark stuff on him. He's a pain.
Yep, and you can low man this because, like we were talking about when all the updates were coming out for Omen, OU was released during the time that Omen was 6-man only. He can be beat with 6 people. It can be difficult if you're not ready for him, especially when you start getting into those abilities like Unfaltering Bravado, which is just after nullification. And if you got a core that's ranging it to push it to that 95% and you get him to take 7 buffs, and then you're just doing cap damage weapon skills back to back, you're gonna hit that 75 really quickly and potentially the 60 right afterwards. So not only are you getting hit by Unfaltering Bravado, which is the 10k damage in Conal, which could kill your tank if you wasn't ready and everybody lined up, or you're sacrificing somebody to take it. You could all die to Dancing Fullers, which is the 2500 damage AoE based off of how many people are in range, including Lupons, and there's nothing can stopping that damage. And then if you're still going at it and you're still burning it down really quickly, you got 0 after that, which is a throat stab move. And if you don't have everybody cured up in that time from all the other things that you've hit, you could just wipe your party just from simply zerging him too fast.
The moral of the story is take your time with this. Take your time going through these things and give the right amount of respect to each of these abilities, because they can and will wipe you if you don't handle them correctly. They're there for a reason, and it's fun.
I mean, there are some groups that you will see shout to do summoner burns on OU. You can very well do that. And again, Unfaltering Bravado will have the same glitchy mechanic where if it's on an avatar, it will only hit the avatar and all the people within that summoner's party if they are all in range. So you could just wipe one whole party instead of the entire alliance. If you have a puppet tanking it, it's the same thing. If you have Unfaltering Bravado, just kill the puppet because you can just resummon a new one really quickly. You know, there's that option too. There are ways to work around all of these abilities, but you have to use what you learned from the previous 5 bosses and use it on OU.
Also remember the draw-in. I think he still does that. Pretty sure he does the draw-in.
They all draw in. They're all going to pull you in if you're pulling hate over 20%, and it's all going to bring you in. But then when you get to his unique abilities towards the end of this, and a lot of people, if they're zerging this, will forget it. And he kind of reminds you when you hit the 15% mark by using a move called Gardez. It's a 20 Yalm terror, and it literally looks like he charges and then shoots spikes out from him. And everybody gets stabbed with these spikes if you're within 20. If you're a white mage and you're worried about this 3 to 10 second terrorize, if your tank's having a hard time, just stand outside of 20, wait for Gardez to go off, and then take care of your party members. You can also avoid the terror if you have high magic evasion on as well too.
Yeah, but that's kind of like, it's meant to be your stopping point of, okay, this is time to set up, because what's about to come, you have to be able, it's a DPS check. You have to be able to do enough damage and survive this last 15%. And it changes even there, because at 10%, he uses a move called Prophylaxis, which immediately recovers its HP to 22%. And after 30 seconds has gone by, he hits the reset button. And I don't mean like, oh, you're still fighting, everything's fine, you still have all your buffs, and he just recovers to 100%. No, he resets, and everything is gone. All your buffs are gone. Anything you did, you're starting over.
Yeah, it's literally as if you just spawned into Oyu's battle round. You are back at the starting point, he's back in the center, unaggroed, and you have chances to get everything back up. But if you used 2 hours during that last 10%, they're gone. You do not get any of your abilities back. So you can make that stop at Gardes, make sure your party's ready, make sure people, if they're really squishy, have their DT sets on. You can use your soul voices, your bolsters, just to make sure you get it down. The other thing is people think the 30-second counter starts at 10%. It actually doesn't. It starts when he uses that move, putting him back up to 22%. So if you get him down to 1% and then he uses it, that's when your 30-second counter starts, not after 10%.
Yeah, you it has to be a burn. You have to take him down, and he's still going to be in that mode where he's using weapon skills like pretty crazy, and he can still use interference. He can still knock you back. He can still ruin your day. So it's not to be taken lightly, and that reset just makes you feel like crap when you see the entire screen turn white and you just pop up right back and you're looking at him and he's almost laughing at you. You can just feel the laughter of this mob laughing at you because you have to do all of this miserable stuff again.
I can still feel Carm's death stare at me when we were streaming OU and we did what we're telling everybody not to do. We were joking around fighting OU and we got all buffed up, but we didn't do like super buffs. We just got our normal buffs up because we're like, oh, we fought OU plenty of times. This is fine. And I ran in and I died. The moment I did one weapon skill, he turned around and he smacked me and I fell to the ground, and I was the higher of the DPS that was supposed to be killing him. And we got him down. He did his ability. We got him down to 1% and he reset the entire fight because we didn't deal damage fast enough.
It was a heartbreaker. It was a heartbreaker.
I mean, we still won. We still ended up doing it because then the next round we're just like, oh, we'll actually use Soul Voice and Bolster, and Claire won't be
we took
an
it
idiot.
seriously. The moral of the story is we took the fight seriously. The second go around because we felt like ding dongs for actually getting a reset. It was not the highest moment we've ever felt. But it just goes to show you that even if you take this content lightly, it's going to punish you. It's going to make you pay.
Yeah, but at the same time, don't let it discourage you. Take it as a lesson to be like, oh, hey, I didn't use food, or I didn't, dump my entire kit into this mob because I was worried about it because the potential reset, and then the reset actually happened. Be like, next time I will full-fledged go all out on this monster to make sure that we actually kill him. And it is possible to kill him before he uses that ability. It is not required of OU to use that 10% ability.
But yeah, I mean, we talk about why we do this mob, and holy crap, the drops from this guy.
There are some not so great drops. This is coming from me. There are some not so great ones. I mean, maybe there's a build for it, but I haven't figured out a build for some of these.
Yeah. I'm not sure where people use the Regal Captain's gloves. Like you said, there probably is a build where this is useful, but I just don't see it.
So I actually knew a person that got Regal Captain's gloves and wanted to test out what the increases the number of attacks when accuracy is low. And it literally is, if you whiff, you will swing again. And it looked like this person was 100 swinging whiffs because he put on no gear, had a level 1 katana on, put only these gloves on, and literally just watched him continuously swing over and over again. It was nuts. But at the same time, it doesn't have a whole lot of stats to it. I did want to try them on Warrior for an Ukos build before Sekpada came out, but Sekpada kind of overrules these.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the ability exists where if you were to whiff, you could swing again. So on those situations where you feel like accuracy is really low, but you need to hit a mob, you could switch into these. I mean, it's got a lot of HP on it too. I'm at 182 on a pair of hands. It's nothing to laugh about.
Yeah, it's a nice piece, but I think it's pretty niche. Then we get to everybody's favorite, the Regal Cuffs. The all coveted.
I mean, I want them.
Yeah, they're insane. Like, you look at them, they've got Aqua Veil +2, they've got Enfeebling Magic Duration +20, Magic Burst Accuracy +30, which you're probably not using these for Magic Burst. But they're
Nice for white mage magic bursting. Holy too. I'm gonna burst my banish threes on something.
There's gotta be something better, I believe, but there probably is. But the things that they do is very, very useful. But hey, if you're magic bursting that Paralyze 2 or you're magic bursting that Frazzle 3, you got that extra accuracy on there. Boom. So
Most definitely. They are amazing. I still want them.
oh, they're a fantastic piece. You can't neglect them, but I've never seen them drop. I've never seen them.
I haven't either. I still want them.
And
I've been trying to get them from a Montrove because they're elusive.
yeah, and then there's the ones I don't like to talk about.
The Regal Gauntlets. They're super amazing because not only do they have spell interruption rate down, which you can finagle with your sets if you're on Paladin or Rune Fencer, but they have regen and refresh if you want to use them in an idle set, depending on how you do your builds. They also have 205 HP, which is crazy. But for Rune Fencers more than Paladin, not saying it's not good for Paladin, because it's still good for Paladin, they have enhancing magic duration plus 20%.
Yeah, really, Paladin's only going to benefit mostly in these from their reprisal. That's where you're really going to see a little bit on Paladin, but at the same time, for your spell interrupt set to have a 205 HP handpiece is really, really good. They're a strong piece. I definitely think they serve more benefit for Rune Fencer than they do Paladin, but they're still just a really strong piece for these two tank jobs. And I'd love to have them on both characters.
Me too. I got them on one. I need to get them on the other one. From a Montrove.
Yeah.
Not from OU. Because OU sucks. I love you, OU, but you suck on your drops.
He's pretty stingy.
He is very stingy. And then you got Regal Gloves, which I still throw question marks up every time I see them. They have converts damage taken to TP plus 20, with also providing damage taken plus 20%. I guess if you know there's something that you're not too worried about hitting you, you can throw these on as a way to get more TP faster. But most people don't like doing that. They like doing the reverse, which I don't blame you. And I just realized that these hands have 342 HP on them.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I think what their original intent was to be in a really overcapped DT set, but I don't know why. I mean,
Maybe more for Ninja, because couldn't you overcap your DT
I could
on
almost
Ninja?
see it as a possibility for Dancer with like Fan Dance, and actually tanking. to supplement if you were having to go so high into DT and tanking that you didn't have the accuracy to constantly build TP. It's just another source. It's an idea. I don't.
Yeah.
I think they're a niche piece that might find a value someday, and I'm sure somebody out there has been like, "This is a great reason for this," but it's going to be a very niche time when these are going to come into play.
And if anybody's watching this podcast and you have built that set for it, please link it in our YouTube comments below because I want to see it. Like, I like niche builds. Carm can tell you all about my random niche builds. They're super fun. Mur can also tell you as well too. I have so many capes just for niche builds. They're great. So if you have one for these gloves, I don't care what job it is on these. I want to see it.
Do you have them?
I do actually.
Oh wow. I didn't know you actually
Yeah.
had them.
Yeah, it was early on Omen, and everybody was like, I don't know what to use these for. And I was like, oh, maybe because I have most of the jobs on there. I have Thief, Bard, Ranger, Core, Dancer, that I could test them out on to figure out a good build. But it kind of got put on the back burner when inventory became a problem. So I still have them, but I kind of forgot that I had them because I didn't have inventory space. But with wardrobes 5 through 8, my inventory is not so much of a problem. Gosh, I needed those wardrobes so badly.
Oh yeah, it was a huge blessing. Then we have the Regal Belt.
That's a staple for Summoner. Oh man, it's so great.
It's wonderful, and you get a little bit of DT for yourself.
Yes. Not only do you get the DT for yourself, though, but you can combine these with your AF pieces to enhance your avatar's accuracy, ranged accuracy, and magic accuracy, which some people kind of, again, overlook. But it's good for both aspects of your avatar for blood packs. Whether it be a physical blood pact or a hybrid, it's fantastic because it has the attack and the magic attack bonus on it. And then if you pair it with another piece of AF, you get that accuracy and magic accuracy to also enhance your blood pact.
And to grab, I mean, I'm all about DT. I love DT sets. To grab 3 DT, flat DT on a belt piece is a really good slot to grab, like for an idle set and for things that are going on, and even a set that prioritizes attack and stuff like that. To have that extra 3% DT in that slot really, I think, opens up a lot of things for builds. So it's a great piece.
Yeah, and it's the DT is also nice because a lot of the times if you have your avatar out, you're going to be specifically building for your avatar, not necessarily yourself, because summoners aren't typically in range, and a lot of people freak out when their avatar dies, or if their avatar just lose hates from different abilities that have hate resets and the mob starts coming towards you and you're like, oh crap, I don't have a different idol set that has damage taken on it. It at least provides that benefit as well too.
Yeah, and then we've got the Regal Earring. This thing is a beast.
I mean, we've talked about it a whole bunch of times. Podcast alone, I mean, it's so great for any job that can wear it in combination, for just having the more accuracy with your AF pieces, because you also get the stat increase, charisma for bards, and then int and mind for all the other jobs that are on there.
10 int
But you also
on a frickin' earring. Holy crap.
10 int for that. Oh man, replace so many different earrings. Even if you used it alone, it's still pretty good if you don't.
Even without the set bonus, like it's still just an insanely good piece.
Yep, replace so many different earrings.
I was pretty happy that it dropped the other night for Carm because he didn't have the Regal Earring yet.
I totally forgot that Carm didn't have the Regal Earring. I thought for some reason you did have it. So when I saw it drop, I was like, who doesn't have it?
Yeah, Carm doesn't have earring, or he does have earring now, but he doesn't have ring either.
That's true, I forgot.
Yeah, I need to get the ring and I need a lot of the drops still. Well, besides Regal necks. Is that
all the Regal
dumb
necklaces
thing drops all the time. But Regal neck is like the best thing short of whatever that dagger is. Rostrum.
Yep. Because it'll give you Phantom Roll +7, which is the second highest amount of Phantom Roll. Since Phantom Roll does not stack, it'll only take your highest one that you have. So again, if you don't have Rostam, you will see people shout for Regal Neck Cores. I do like that it also gives you an increase to your Phantom Roll duration. I know I'm one of those people where it's like, oh, I hated Karn Wenhan because I was like, people are just going to be lazy bards. But when you're on Corsair, you don't want to stop attacking just to do rolls because you can't override your rolls, which drives me nuts.
Redoing rolls is a pain. It's yeah, and you can't just do it at an opportune time unless you cycle your rolls, which is basically rolling through a different roll that you don't actually want. So rolling it's really strong, but it's almost an inconvenience at times, and you have to plan for it. So the extra duration is really nice.
Well, and really the difference between a Rostam core and a Phantom Roll core really isn't that much. So if you don't have to change your weapon, which can drop your DPS like we were talking about before, it's huge. Like you can still do Savage Blade Corsairs giving out the output and still giving great rolls. I mean, yes, Rostam will give you that slight edge, but it's not as big of a difference as some people will make it out to be. In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we did
I
the
don't know
math.
about you.
We did the math the other night, and it really wasn't game breaking by any means to go from Regal Neck to Rostam. Yes, there are benefits to it, but it's not make or break.
Yeah, like I won't switch to Rostam to put up rolls if I'm in the middle of DPSing. And there are DPS checks like with OU. If for some reason my roll drops and I didn't put it up in that time during the break, like I still need to provide that DPS output to keep getting OU down while providing rolls. I'm not going to switch to a dagger for that. I will keep and just do the necklace.
And then there's the all beautiful Regal Gem.
That you can't get to drop either.
Thank you for the reminder. I try
You're
to
welcome.
just not think about these things, but yeah, I cannot get a Regal Gem to save my life. My Red Mage cries itself to sleep at night, not having the Regal Gem. It's really great, really insane. It's not gonna overwrite some other things, mainly the Ambuscade Bow for magic accuracy if you need full-on magic accuracy, but the Enfeebling Magic Effect +10, if you can land your spell, that Enfeebling Magic Effect is going to be that much better for most of your stuff.
I'm kind of surprised that they didn't put the set bonus on the Regal Gem, but at the same time, I think it would overpower it.
Yeah, I think it would
At
be
the
a one.
time.
I think it would be a one-off. I think it would be the only option to enfeeble in if it had the set bonus on it. I don't think there would be any alternative to it. It would just be that gem. Right now, you still have the Ambuscade bow, and you also have. There's probably something else I'm not remembering.
There's Pemfrado Taflum, but that's not as good as this gem, but it does at least get you to close to the magic accuracy with that one at least, so you can build into Regal Gem on Red Mage. But the reason I like that they did do this for Red Mage is throughout my Final Fantasy XI career, people have tried to get Red Mage to be what Scholar is today. And the one thing that Red Mage does extremely well is enfeebling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy they gave something to Red Mage to emphasize that they are great at this feature. They are really good at enfeebling monsters.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have multiple sets for their Red Mage as far as enfeebling, and they don't experience how potent Enfeebling Magic Effect Plus really is. When you get a Red Mage that's able to land Paralyzed 2 with the Enfeebled Magic Effect Plus, you see an insane difference. I mean, it's extremely noticeable, that Magic Effect Plus on it. It's really strong. And for the red mages that are still gearing up and everything, there's a lot of sets that you should kind of hybridize to where you know you're going to be able to land these things, or you need to go full accuracy. Another thing that I advise people to do is put full accuracy in your Frazzle 2 set. So that way, when you land Frazzle 2, you're already getting some magic evasion, and then you can put your duration and other gear into Frazzle 3. But landing that Frazzle 2 first lets your Frazzle 3 land even easier. But a lot of people don't think about that. They just want to go straight to the Frazzle 3 and throw all their magic accuracy gear into that, and you just don't need that much for it when you can land that Frazzle 2 first and make it easier. And you can get more duration and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then we have the Regal Ring, which if you're a DD class, even if it's heavy or light DD, you want Regal Ring because you could use it in almost any weapon skills because it has so many different stats in it, as well as also providing you attack regardless if it's melee attack or ranged attack. And since it does, like the Regal Earring, have the set bonus, if you pair it with any of your weapon skill damage pieces that you usually get in your AF, there's typically one, you will get 15 accuracy if you stack with more, depending on what your weapon skill is. If you need more multi-attack versus not, you potentially will get more accuracy, which can help you with your DPS output.
I'd really like to know why they chose the jobs that they did choose for Regal Ring and why they just didn't do all jobs. I mean, there's some pretty key jobs not on here, like Blue Mage especially. I'm really surprised Blue's not on there.
It's because Blue's on the earring. So they didn't want to repeat jobs on certain pieces. Like, Red Mage is on two of them. It's on the Regal Earring and the Regal Gem. But they're not on this piece. And Corsair is on Regal Ring and Regal Necklace, but it's not on the earring, which it could benefit from the earring for its magic weapon skills.
Yeah, I suppose.
They're trying not. Yeah, they're trying not to repeat jobs in that aspect.
I get it, but this is it's such a strong ring that it really sucks for the jobs that aren't on this ring. Because I think there's a lot of jobs that would really benefit. I mean, just Red Mage, Bard, and Blue Mage in general that have the ability to be melee DPS and utilize these stats in a strong way, and they just don't have the option.
I do like that they added jobs, though, that typically don't get this style of ring. Like, you have Puppet Master on there, you have Ranger on there, you have Beastmaster on there that don't usually get included on too many DPS type ring slots. And so it's really nice to see these oddball jobs being thrown onto a piece that can help their DPS output, regardless if it's from range or up close.
Yeah, even Paladin and Rune being on it is nice. I use this in my Savage Blade set.
And then OU also gives all of the scales, and you've probably heard people saying that they get scaled all the time. Yes, he does drop scales. Yes, it does suck when you see the scales drop.
Yeah, and then you've got all your Moonlight accessories or crafting materials, stuff like that. And then you get the fun title, OU Obliterator. I'm still not over Jin Gagger. Like that one, that one's gonna sit for a while.
You mean you don't want to be Foo Fighter?
It's not the same. Like, it doesn't. At least it makes sense. Like, why? Why are we gagging something? Like, Did you just
I mean-
run out of words?
I mean, we have kin kicker. I mean, are you gonna
Yeah,
go
you're
kick your
kicking.
daughter at some point? You're just gonna go
Wow.
kick your kin?
Wow.
I'm just saying, in context.
But at least
We're
it's
talking context here.
It's an action that makes sense. Like we're kicking something, we're fighting something, we're obliterating something. We're
We are
not
not kicking.
gagging
We
him.
do not.
We're not gagging Jin. That's not how. That's the secret trick.
You could
Yeah.
gag on Jin, though.
Oh, I do. Don't worry. Every time I drink it, but that's not a title I ever wanted. Believe me, it's
No,
not.
you just didn't know you wanted it.
You know, I kind of think I would have known, but now I do. And here we are. I'm gonna go.
Knowing's half the battle.
I'm gonna go fight Jin now just to get the title and walk around and have people check me. I am the gagger.
Because we didn't look at keys, and he's key combuster.
Okay, that one makes a little bit of sense.
We're going to make him combust. He's just going to explode.
Well, you do
I mean, that's what you do with
him.
magic burst. Yeah, that's true. Maybe they knew. They knew people were going to be like, he's going to get magic burst. Nobody's going to do the physical strat. They're all going to magic burst him.
This is just how Jin is the joke. His drops are the joke. His title is the joke. Like, he's just the joke of the group. He is the one you laugh at. He's the one that got, like, trapped in a corner and somebody, like, I don't even want to go there, but stuck a dick down his throat and he's gagging on it. That's what happened to this poor Cataray, and somehow we've gotten to this point of this is where we are. And this is how we know it's probably a good time to cut off and give you guys back your time and not talk about that horrible thought anymore. So I hope everybody has had fun listening into our episode on Omen, learning about different things, and hopefully you guys will go out and actually experience this content and learn about it, not just sit in the back and watch somebody else do it or buy the content or something like that. Actually go out and learn these mechanics and embrace this part of the game because it is really fun.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, I want to know what your strats are that you've been using on any of the Omen bosses. It's always nice to see what the community is doing, whether it be the standard set builds that people do for these bosses, or if you're doing something unique. Let's all talk about it. You can either come in our Discord and talk about it, or, like I said, leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Love to hear it.
Yeah, check us out. If you have any emails, if you have any questions, any comments that you want us to talk about or want us to address, we're happy to talk about it. If we see you in game on Asura and you're around, please feel free to wave, ask any questions. Enjoy the game. Like, that's what this game is about. It's about having fun.
And it's what we like to do. We like to talk about this game.
And gagging Jin, apparently.
That's all you're going to picture now. That's going to be your whole montage whenever we do Jin. You're like, I'm just going to shove my dick down its throat. And that's just going to gag from it.
On that note,
No.
have a great time, everybody. Enjoy the game.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.